Welcome back to Punk Rock Theologian. When I first introed this series, I explained how the Bible refers to the Ten Commandments more frequently as the two tablets, and today we're making the switch from Tablet 1 to Tablet 2. The first four commandments have been about our relationship with God. We had that He's the only God, He tells us how to worship Him, it should make a difference in our lives, and He controls the rhythm of our lives. Now we start talking about our relationships with other people, and the first one is the first relationship that every single one of us has, and that's with our parents. This is the beginning step of all human relationships. Even if you never met your biological parents, you have them. That's why my old Bible school song said, number 5, we all should strive to honor father and mother. That's the gist of the command that we see in Exodus 20:12 and Deuteronomy 5:16. It says, honor your father and mother as the Lord your God commanded you. Then you will live a long, full life in the land the Lord your God is giving you. The one difference between Exodus and Deuteronomy is that first, as the Lord your God commanded you. That's only in Deuteronomy. Once again, it feels like Moses is trying to remind and emphasize to the people, this isn't my idea. I'm not saying this. This is God's commandment. He's the one telling you. And that matters because He knows what He's talking about. This isn't just rules made up by the older generation to try to keep the younger generation in line. We like to pretend like this verse is the Nickelodeon section of the Ten Commandments. Like we're going along with some important stuff and then it says, hey kids, remember to listen to mom and dad. All right, let's get back to the grown-ups. First and foremost, we never outgrow this commandment. No matter how old you are, your parents are still your parents. Even if they're dead and gone, this commandment never stops to honor them. That's the easy part. The hard one is that there's absolutely no criteria given for who deserves this honor. Nothing says honor your parents if they deserve it, if they were nice to you, if they're good people. There's none of that. It doesn't even say honor your parents if they honor God. Whether your parents are kind or cruel, attentive or absent, living or dead, this applies to every one of us. I believe God puts this rule in place because He's teaching us the concept of authority, the concept of submission to authority. The simplest example of human authority figures is parents. Every child has parents. Sadly, we live in a world where not every child even knows their parents, not every child gets to encounter decent parents, but that doesn't change the fact that everybody came from parents. And the idea was that if we can learn to submit to that authority, that teaches us the concept of submitting to other authority. This was beautifully illustrated in the movie Man of Steel, where it showed how Superman's heroic moral character traced back to the young Clark Kent learning to trust and obey his adoptive father, even in the face of painful personal sacrifice. None of us have that story. We didn't crash land on planet Earth as a baby, but we can all learn the same type of submission. And when you leave the home, it applies to every other relationship. The energy and attitude we put into our work, whether it's professional work or just the work that we do with our lives, clearly demonstrates how much we honor the one we're serving. And again, going back to that idea of it's not really about whether you had good parents or not, we're called to honor them. It's also not really about whether you have a good job or a good boss. The point is, we do serve a good God, and He expects us to honor those in authority over us and give our best. That's why Paul actually explains this commandment in Ephesians 6. Starting in verse 1, he says, children, obey your parents because you belong to the Lord, for this is the right thing to do. Honor your father and mother. This is the first commandment with a promise. If you honor your father and mother, things will go well for you, and you will have a long life on the earth. That promise is there in both Exodus and Deuteronomy. It comes right after the verse we read. But what's so interesting to me is that promise is repeated all throughout Deuteronomy. Specifically, Deuteronomy 4:39-40 puts this same kind of context about God as this commandment gives about parents. It says, so remember this and keep it firmly in mind. The Lord is God in heaven and on earth. There is no other. If you obey all the decrees and commands I am giving you today, all will be well with you and your children. I am giving you these instructions so you will enjoy a long life in the land the Lord your God is giving you for all time. And it's like God is saying, this is the point I'm trying to make. This is why I want you to listen. I need you to be able to listen and obey to people that might not be perfect, but they're the ones that I put in place for a reason. The inescapable question is, how do you do this if you weren't blessed with good parents? Far too many people in this world carry scars and trauma from their parents, from these relationships that should have been the best and most trustworthy. The only real answer to that is turning to Him. And honestly, that might be part of what this commandment is about. And He wants us to learn that He is our source of strength. Like John 15:5, where Jesus said, I am the vine, you are the branches. Those who remain in me and I in them will produce much fruit, for apart from me you can do nothing. Even our ability to keep these commandments, our ability to honor our parents, whether they're good or bad, comes from Him. That's what Paul was talking about in Philippians 4:13, where he said, I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. And that's why my personal declaration from this one is, I rely on God's power, not my own. Christ gives me the strength to face anything. Without Him I can do nothing. Because our ability to submit and serve and recognize authority, whether we approve of that authority or not, is something that only comes by His power. God gave us rules to obey, and part of what He gave us is other authority figures here on earth. Sometimes those authority figures are noble and excellent and easy to follow because we love and respect them. Sometimes it seems impossible. I firmly believe that God never commands us to do something without giving us the strength to do it. So when He tells us to honor our father and mother, and then we carry that on to apply to bosses and government leaders and whatever authority figures God has established, then it becomes clear that the only way we will carry this out is when we learn to rely on God's power, not our own.